everybody. Today I'm speaking with Christopher Highlander. Christopher is a musician and composer from Sweden, based out of Sweden. And Christopher has a really interesting story that he's going to share with you guys. And just so you know, before we start, the way that I met Christopher is kind of interesting. So a quick backstory. Over the last, I would say, month or two, over the last couple months, I've become really interested in Spotify and trying to learn as much as possible about Spotify, both to better promote my own music and just in general for my website and for this podcast to better inform all of my subscribers. I think Spotify is a really interesting platform. And more, I've been coming across really great examples of artists that are doing significant things on Spotify that are generating millions and millions of streams. I've connected with someone recently in LA who is up to about 16 million streams. About a week ago, I was introduced to a person who's up to 58 million streams. And, you know, as recently as a couple of years ago, I think like a lot of us, like a lot of musicians, fairly skeptical about Spotify. You know, the idea of getting paid fractions of a penny for streams of my music just didn't seem exciting. But more and more, I'm starting to see the possibility, and I'm meeting and connecting with artists that are making real money on Spotify. So a couple of days ago, I was on YouTube and I was perusing different YouTube business videos, and I came across a music business video about, you know, how to make money, how to make a living as a musician I think this was last year in 2017 and beyond. And one of the comments on that video was a comment that Christopher left. And I'm going to paraphrase your comment, Christopher. I don't remember exactly what you said, but it was something along the lines of, I think you said, you know, I'm surprised you didn't really mention Spotify. You didn't really bring up Spotify. And you said something to the effect of, you know, you're making a full-time living from your music on Spotify, and you've been doing it for, I think, several years now. And so it was a really interesting comment, and I reached out to you and invited you to be a guest on my podcast to educate all of us more about Spotify. So I'm interested, Christopher, why don't we start with your story? Tell us about your music and how long you've been on Spotify, how many streams. I think you said to date you've generated 20 million streams. So I'm really curious to hear your story and how you've generated all these streams on Spotify.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And so I'm 26 years old now, and I've been writing music for about 10 years. So when I was like 15, 16, long ago, I discovered that I had this passion for just writing music, and I wanted to learn piano, and I was just grinding it out, practicing hours every day. And since I'm Swedish, Spotify is Swedish. Spotify came out also 10 years ago, but it hasn't really gotten popular until the last few years. So I was kind of lucky that I used Spotify for probably since 2009. Because I'm Swedish, most of the people know about Spotify since it started here. I just started using Spotify, and then as I got into making music, I realized, wait, I can get my music on Spotify without having a label. Because nobody heard my music yet, right? I was writing songs for about 2-3 years, just learning how to compose. Actually, that was my first real passion in life, I think. And I asked a friend, I think, how did you get your music on Spotify? And he said he used CD Baby. You know, it's a company based in America.
Right.
And I checked this out. I was like, wait, I can actually pay about $50 or something, and I can get a whole album out of Spotify. I don't have to have a label or anything. So I did that with my first album, and I did the same with my second album. And by the time I was making my third album, this was when I was in university in 2013, so 5 years ago. And when I put my third album out, I still have nobody listening to me. On YouTube, things started to pick up. People started to discover me on YouTube, and I started to get into this new genre called chillstep. It's basically dubstep music, but that's actually really melodic and really beautiful and really calm. Like, it's really chill, right? It's like this new age kind of music, but dubstep in a calm way. And I was lucky that I was one of the first people, I think, in the world that started to really get into that. A lot of people were trying it, but nobody was actually making an album after album, and I was doing that. And I was lucky that by my third album on Spotify, and keep in mind that when I put music on Spotify, I didn't expect anyone to hear it. It was mostly just like a fun thing I could tell to my family. Like I actually have music on Spotify, so it's easy to show my family and friends that, oh, it's like a cool thing, right? But by my third album, someone that had this big playlist on Spotify, I think he had the biggest playlist in the world that wasn't owned by Spotify themselves. And he decided to put almost a whole album of me in that playlist. And since the day he put my album there, he started to just spread. So it's kind of sad to say that that was a big like a streak of luck, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, I'm definitely following what happened here. So you to sort of recap, you got into Spotify, you said in 2009.
Yeah, but I had music there first in 2012, I think.
Okay. And then you put out, you said several albums. I think you said 3 albums. You started creating this genre of music called chill step, which that's really interesting that you were one of the sort of pioneers in that genre. And then one of your albums, or most of one of your albums, got picked up by this major playlist. And then from there, things sort of took off for you. So there's a couple things there. I think it's really interesting that, I mean, one of the things I'm hearing over and over, and I think one of the things that's becoming rather obvious, is that in order to do really well on Spotify, one of the keys is getting featured on playlists. You said in your case, it was more or less a stroke of luck. Sounds like you didn't initiate that. It sounds like they just added they came across your music, obviously liked it, and added your tracks. But I'm wondering, Christopher, knowing what you know now, would there be any way to sort of orchestrate the sort of success you've had and strategize? Are there things you're doing to further your success on Spotify, or are things sort of running on default at this point?